being,
Yes.
chiseled, whatever have you. Sexy is in the eye of the beholder, and there are many other things that appeal to both sexes as it relates to what's sexy and what's not, right?
Yeah, and sexiness is not in itself oppression or objectification or any of those things.
Right.
No, it's there's no oppression going on here. And as far as objectification goes, Victoria's Secret says that they choose the models for their catalogs and for the show based on how they appeal to women, not to men. And indeed, it's women who have made Victoria's Secret as successful as they are. They pulled in $6.5 billion last year. They um, have over a third of the American market in lingerie. It's women who have made them successful, not men, because men don't often or don't usually buy lingerie for their partners. Um, it's aimed at women, and it's working. Women see these models. I'm generalizing a bit here, but the women who respond to these models anyway see them as sort of the way they would, as embodying the sexiness that they would like to feel when they wear Victoria's Secret lingerie. Um, so,
Well, and they do it with class. I mean, there's as it relates to marketing women's underwear, let's say, there's a world of difference between sexy and sleazy, and Victoria's Secret is sexy and it's not sleazy, and there are to go unnamed for sure, but I can think of at least two failed chains in the past that were
mhm.
sleazy, and this is why I think everything you're saying is spot on because there's a bit of class going on with Victoria's Secret for sure.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. One of the feminist writers that I quote in my article about it said that Victoria's Secret fashion show was just a parade of trashy costumes and sleazy strippers and that sort of thing, and that's really not that's really not what it's about. It's it's a celebration of sexiness, and sexiness is not sexist. It's not oppression, not even objectification.
And it's
But
also not bad.
it's not bad. That's right. And that as for these women's being as for these models being genetically perfect, would it sell more lingerie if they walked a handful of frumps down the runway? I mean, women don't want to see. They've tried this before in advertising. Companies have tried this before. They've tried putting quote unquote real women, although the Victoria's Secret models are real women, but they tried putting real women in lingerie ads, and they don't sell as well. And it's because advertising is about fantasy. It's about how we want to see ourselves. We don't want to literally see ourselves, in lingerie or in our case, men's underwear. We don't want to see people that look like us. We want to sort of see our ideal and imagine ourselves. Imagine that as our ideal selves. So,
Yeah, you're absolutely
it's
right. It's interesting. Well, first of all, let me just come out and say I'm totally on board with sexiness. I think it's great. I want to make my position very publicly well known. Um, I was in a Victoria's Secret. Danny and I were in one, oh, probably 2 months ago at South Coast Plaza. And the one at South Coast Plaza is enormous. And it was shoulder to shoulder people. I mean, this was well before the Christmas or Thanksgiving rush. It was just a Sunday afternoon at South Coast Plaza that's packed with people. And I was actually stunned because it had been a long time since I had been in one. Um, that I was one of the very few men in the place. I mean, it was all women buying stuff. I mean, it's not a bunch of dirty old men getting off going through. I mean, it's you make that point that it's for women by women. Yeah, men, we definitely dig the catalogs, and I definitely had them stopped coming to my house because I had young men in my household and I didn't want to find them
Yeah,
hidden under
okay,
their.
right.
I suppose I don't need to finish that sentence. On the other hand, it was interesting to me that what you were saying, Mark. It obviously that's an anecdotal experience on my part, but it was totally proving the point.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in there before too. And, sometimes, especially around Christmas time, men will go in and they'll buy lingerie for their girlfriends or wives. but the vast majority of Victoria's Secret customers are women, and of course feminists would say, well, those women have just been conditioned. They've been conditioned through advertising and society to demean themselves and objectify themselves by buying Victoria's Secret lingerie. And my feeling is that the feminists who would complain about that are not getting enough sex.
By the way, I could have finished that sentence for you. You are so right on, man.
I mean, there's just such a kind of a mean-spiritedness and bitterness about it. You have to question the motives, but and also it doesn't give women enough credit for being able to make up their own minds about how sexy they want to feel and how they want to feel that way.
And you know what? I've had exactly what you just said. I've how do I put this? I've had women through the years. I mean, I stopped. That was a wrong place to put a pause. But tell me the exact same thing. Women tend, they say, to dress for other women and themselves. Women who care about the way they look and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So everybody dresses for women then, because that's what men do.
That's right.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, now, again, keeping an eye on the clock, man, and when we've got you on, this is golden time. So now I want to move to your other article, much more serious. I mean, we're playing around about, actually James Bond and sexiness. Those are dead serious topics. But Mark, you wrote this one. This was came out a week ago about the Washington Post. That we're supposed to believe rape accusations even if they're false. And I go back to, I mean, immediately my mind comes to the Duke lacrosse story. Talk about that. What's your point that you're making there in response to the WAPO?
Washington, there's this, as your listeners no doubt know because it was all over the news, there was this supposed gang rape that took place at the University of Virginia fraternity party, and that story has become unraveled thanks to very questionable reporting or journalism on the part of the Rolling Stone writer who broke this story. And as the story started to fall apart and it began to look like the accusations were false, that doesn't suit the progressive agenda that we live in a rape culture. So one writer in particular, Zerlina Maxwell at the Washington Post, kind of rushed to defend the agenda, and she wrote an article entitled something like, "No matter what Jackie said," and Jackie is the supposed victim in this incident. Right. "No matter what Jackie said, we should automatically believe rape claims." And the thrust of that piece is that we should always initially believe the rape victim, regardless of what it puts the accused through, until until the accusations have been disproven, otherwise. So, in other words, we should just automatically believe that a man accused of rape, is guilty until proven innocent. And of course, it's one of the most un-American things you could possibly support. Here, the whole basis of our legal system is we're innocent until proven guilty. But Maxwell feels that we should offer sympathy, that we should sympathize with the victim and her claims, and and so support her through that, because it's worse to disbelieve her than it is for the accused to be disbelieved. And this is just ludicrously anti-American, and she took a lot of heat for that article. So I give credit to Americans everywhere for standing up to our standards. But it's really scary when you think that feminists like Maxwell, progressives like Maxwell, believe that we live in a rape culture, and therefore men are, to a large extent, automatically guilty and automatically rapists unless proven otherwise. we don't live in a rape culture. I've said this many times. We don't live in a rape culture. We consider rape to be a heinous, despicable crime. We imprison people for it. Maybe the sentences aren't as long as we would, or as severe as we would like for them to be. But we don't live in a culture in which rapists are applauded or supported or ignored. But we do, however, live in a country where we have the rule of law, at least in theory, and that includes innocence until proven guilty.
Mark, it's the same argument, man. I mean, we can expand or extrapolate whatever to Ferguson. Wilson, guilty, not only until proven innocent, and at least a grand jury finding no evidence to indict him, an overwhelming testimony and whatever to the contrary. But I think both of these are subsets. I think both of these are. Of course, we don't live in a rape society. We don't live in a racist society, regardless of Al Sharpton and Eric My People Holder and Barack Obama. Barack, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon Obama. Regardless of what they tell us, this is progressivism, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, well, as I mentioned, it's very scary to think that
it's extremely scary. Man.
Yeah, it's very scary to think that there are progressives that feel like emotions, like offering empathy to the victim is more important than the detachment of proving a case against someone. I mean, it's not up to law enforcement people, frankly, to feel empathy. I mean, certainly they do in many instances, but it's up to law enforcement to determine if a crime has been committed, to gather all the facts, to examine the evidence, and then act accordingly. It's not up to law enforcement to feel sorry for a rape victim, even though, I mean, it's obviously a very human thing to do, but that's not
right.
what the justice system is about. But for progressives, as we know, feeling is everything, and
and facts don't matter. Listen, Mark, I'm sorry, man. We are out of time. You got to come back. You know we love you on the show. Hey, as we say on the show, pimp yourself. Tell folks where they can check you out.
Well, my articles get published at various places, but I collect them all ultimately at marktapson.com. So that's the easiest place to go, and then you can find me on Twitter at Mark Tapson. And that is Mark TAPSON.com. Mark Tapson, thank you for joining the show, man. Thanks for having me, guys. All right, we'll see you.
All right, Mark. See you later, brother. Thanks.
Dude, I love Tapson.
Oh, I mean, you read the stuff, and obviously I'll put a link to marktapson.com, and those 3 articles that we talked about are the first 3 on his site. I mean, the ease with this guy writes about Middle Eastern conflict, conflict over sexy women's lingerie, and then just here's what's going on with James Bond. I mean, he covers, culture, politics, the whole thing.
And again, I mean, us conservatives, Tapson among us, are cold-hearted. We don't care about people. But listen, I mean, that dude, he's all over it. And just the way that he talks about a wide spectrum of stuff, great guest. I love having him on.
Yeah, we're going to do that every week. We're going to have him on every week because every week he probably writes 4 or 5 articles a week, all of which are worthy of discussion.
And I think he, while few stand at our level, I think Tapson might be up there, don't you?
You know what? Although few do stand at our level, you know what, man? I'd have to set aside the false braggadocio and say Tapson's above my level.
And of course, I'm kidding. I mean, as was Andrew Clavin yesterday. But man, it's fun to have people like that on. Because people, we flap our gums, and of course we have our fans. But yeah, hey, dude, take us out. This is a great show.
All right, folks, thanks so much for listening. You can find at therightmics.us a little bit later this afternoon summary links to everything that we talked about. Please follow our Twitter handle at therightmics. We will be back in 22 and a half hours. Got another special guest from Southern California, RJ Moeller. He also works with Mark at Acculturated and also runs Hashtag Productions. This is The Right Mics. Have a great afternoon.